Good morning, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you to part 2 of our series, Supporting the Adult Education System as we are working to complete the Recruitment Action Plan. This series is brought to you today by the Illinois Community College Board, the Professional Development Network of the Adult Education System, which includes the Central Illinois Adult Education Service Center, the Southern Illinois Professional Development Center, and the ALRC, the Adult Education Resource Center in the northern part of the state. In addition, ICSPS is supporting the adult education recruitment effort, and my name is Amy Julian. I'm the director for the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support. You're going to hear from some great individuals and some great content today. To start us off, we're going to go through some housekeeping items. All of you are in listen only mode. So if you do have questions, go ahead and post those in the question box. Or if we do have time, we'll take questions and you can raise your hand, but the best place to do that is to post those in the question box. This is a 3-event series, and the 3 events are really to support the system. Last week, we got together on understanding the process, and that recording is available on the website that we'll be sharing with you in a few minutes. We are here with the gap analysis on February 24th, and we're going to ensure that you've identified a problem and kind of look through giving you some examples. And then next steps, we're going to get together again next week. And next week, we're going to come together and we're going to talk about successful submissions, what that looks like, and what is the process moving forward. The agenda for today, for our short little hour together, is to go over purpose, goal, and timeline. So we'll go through that pretty quick to level set and allow everybody to get on, make sure we're all on the same page. Then we are excited to have your friends and colleagues from PODER talking about their marketing strategy, what steps they took, what that looked like, possibly looking at some barriers, challenges, and how they overcame those barriers to success. We're going to wrap up today providing you with examples of what that action plan looks like. So last week we introduced you to the action plan. This week we're going to give you some fun examples of what that looks like. And then we're going to wrap into just the resources that are available to support you. So it's going to be an exciting hour, it's going to be an engaging hour, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So purpose, goal, timeline is really just wanted to reiterate where we are. So the purpose, ICCB has identified that enrollment in Illinois adult education has experienced a decreased trend over the past 3 years. Okay. In order to address this issue and provide current adult education programs with focus and support in examining student enrollment and retention strategies, ICCB has requested that all providers who enrollment is down 20% or more will be required to attend these series of professional development trainings and complete the enrollment action plan. So some of you are required to be here. Some of you just want to tune in for fun. We're excited to have everybody with us today. ICSPS and the Adult Education Professional Development Network, in coordination with ICCB, are delivering this particular professional development series to support the adult education programs as they work to develop, implement, and deploy strategies to address student retention and recruitment. So that's our purpose. That's why we're here. The goal is to keep us moving forward. If you're a fan of Disney, I like the keep moving forward strategy that they employ a lot. So by deploying evidence-based strategies and focusing on action items, enrollment in adult education will increase. That's our goal. That's why we're here, looking at how we can keep this ship moving forward. Timeline. Proactive planning is the idea of the timeline. And so our action plans that we're going to talk about today, and SIPDC is going to share some examples, and it's going to be an exciting engagement there. Those are due March 31st, and they're due to each program's regional support people. So if you don't know who your regional support is, be sure you figure that out, and we'll be sharing that on the website as well. But those are due March 31st, so not today, not tomorrow, and we want you to take some time with those. We'll talk about that in the example part. Also, April through forever, the action plans will be a part of ongoing dialogue between ICCB regional support and programs to keep recruitment and retention strategies at the forefront. Just again, wanted to highlight some resources there. This is the Adult Education Engagement and Retention Series. That's what that website looks like. And there are some great resources both on the Adult Education Excellence site and the ICSPS site. So with that, I'm going to hand the floor over to the individuals from PODER because they are going to talk about a marketing strategy. So a lot of the things that we've talked about have been implemented by this particular organization and partner, and we want to showcase their great work. So with that, I'm going to hand the floor over to PODER. Daniel, are you able to unmute? I am not hearing anyone. Danielle, Griselda, Jose, would any of you like to jump in?
Hi, thank you everyone. My name is Griselda Piedra, and I am the Community Relations Manager here at Poder, and we are super excited to be showcasing a few strategies that we feel will help you. So just to get started, and I'm sure we're having a little difficulties in connecting with our CEO, Daniel Loftus, at the moment. But if
Griselda,
we can move on to the
I am
next.
back. I hate to interrupt you, but I am back,
Great.
and I thank you for doing that tremendous job of killing some time. Amy, thank you for the introduction. Apologies to all. I was just trying to make a dramatic entrance, and I think that was accomplished. Daniel Loftus, I am the founder and CEO of Poder. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to talk to all of you about some of the strategies that we've employed over the last year. We are just quickly kind of for those who aren't familiar with the organization, almost 25 years now. We've been focused on immigrant integration work. We spent almost 18 years in Pilsen along 18th Street, for those who are familiar with the Lower West Side. We spent the last almost 7 years in Midway Airport area, focused on societal integration first and foremost, and then workforce integration is sort of goal 1A for the predominantly Latino immigrants that we serve. I'm going to make, two promises to you over the next for what we're going to do over the next 30 minutes. One, despite that introduction, this will not be an infomercial about Poder. We're incredibly proud of what we've been able to accomplish, but recognize that we've got a goal here, and that is to make sure all of you have some clear takeaways. So regardless of budget, we want to be conscious that folks might not have significant resources to dedicate to this, or might not have the team available, that we're giving you both short and long-term goals. And we're also providing free resources, as well as those that can, require a little bit significant or significantly more investment. So Amy, if you wouldn't mind advancing the next slide. So despite awful circumstances over the last year, and specifically in the areas that we serve at Poder around Midway Airport, 60629, the zip codes 60632 were some of the worst impacted, affected communities in Chicago, and as a result in the country during the pandemic. But I throw this up here to start because I want to demonstrate that it can be done. But it really starts with a commitment to a strategy, a holistic strategy. So when I look back, and I'm going to quickly turn it over here to Mark and Griselda and Jose, who made all of this happen. But what we did probably in mid-April, so March we shut down, just like all of you, of 2020. And about mid-April we said, we're not going to return until September to in-person instruction. And I did that for two reasons. I felt like there was an uncertainty, there was a fear, and there was also a bit of waiting that people said to themselves, well, this is going to pass, right? Instead, I wanted to say, all right, let's settle into this new reality. Let's commit to this process. So for staff and for students, we didn't have to think about, okay, in 2 weeks or a month, we might go back to in-person learning. Instead, it allowed us to focus and sort of go all in on this strategy and not wait for that new, or at that point, we felt like the normal might return. I think all of us have moved past that at this point. So that gave us a bit of a head start. So Amy, if you want to go to the next slide, please. So quickly, snapshot. This is where we were in 2019, pre-pandemic. I looked at this and said, okay, this is where we were previous. we need to make some adjustments. I think more than anything, in terms of a leadership perspective, it's, can I put people in the right positions and positions where they can succeed, and then get out of the way. And when I looked at this org chart, I said, we need to pivot. We don't have the resources to do that right now. Let's look for opportunities to move people around a little bit and make certain that the goals, and we'll talk about some of the strategies here in a second, but the goals of increasing enrollment in a new way. Previously, it was all word of mouth, posting flyers, church bulletins, announcements, etc. We had to put people in the right position to be successful. So the next slide gives you a sense of where we are today. And I want to emphasize the fact that the most critical move was to move Griselda from operations manager on the left side of your screen, the first circle, to community relations manager. There was no cost incurred there. She obviously needed to buy in, just like all of us, to saying, we need to refocus our energy. We took our receptionist, we didn't have a reception any longer, right? We'd suspended all in-person walk-up, who previously had reported to our office manager, and had them report to her. And she's going to talk more about, in so many ways, the digital divide, the obstacles that our students faced. We needed them to be tier 1 IT support, and that's pretty much what they've become. On the other side, the other circle, were just some additional hours. We took our best folks, our folks who were looking for additional hours, who are instructors, and added some additional responsibilities. But in the end, I think probably on average, and Mark and Griselda can talk to this as well, probably about 10 hours per week we added. So yes, there's a cost there, but it wasn't significant. It was just saying, we've got to create a different presence. We got to be more accessible, and this is one way we can do it. But it really spoke to this idea of, it's all hands on deck. And so while some of these changes weren't major, they were critical, speaking on a leadership perspective. And then, as I said, my job at the end of the day, let's put people in the right positions, let's set them up to be successful, and then get out of the way. And following that mantra, I turn it over to Griselda and Mark to take us from here.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It's a pleasure to be here. So let's get things started. So Griselda, what were the different methods and media used in recruitment efforts since the pandemic shut down last March?
So for Poder, we really did highlight a lot of our current resources. So we started off with our text messaging platform. So that was our biggest form of communicating with our current students. And then we thought, okay, how else can we communicate with the rest of the community, right? So we went on to our social media. So then we integrated social media, Facebook, Instagram, which gave into a leadway to the Messenger application that allowed us to communicate with the community. From there, of course, sparked the interest. People were calling, so our phone lines were very critical and crucial. Emailing became another platform of communication, another recruitment platform as well. We also began to integrate our YouTube channel, so that has also helped. And then another critical component is, of course, our partner organizations. So we continue to utilize them as our second biggest recruitment platform. We worked a lot with the AJC, which is the American Job Center. That also allowed us to utilize several different referral systems like the NowPow. And then from there, we also thought back to our social media component and figured we needed to be a little more targeted. And we integrated the use of Facebook groups, paid sponsorships like Google Ads and Facebook Ads. And then because we're also working with our job training courses, we also experimented with the use of Indeed. And so these were the different various recruitment strategies that we implemented.
Great. Next slide, please. How has the increased use of social media impacted Poder's visibility in the community in a virtual setting?
Yes. So when the pandemic hit back in March of 2020, we knew our level of engagement and communication would suffer. And so we knew it would be difficult to reach folks without that in-person capability. We struggled with the difficulty in offering the same level of customer service that portrayed trust and the comfort level our potential students seek and need. And with that in mind, we had to put our heads together and one, find out where we can potentially reach the community, and two, be able to engage in a conversation with them even before they called us. So social media has been and continues to be an extremely popular platform of communication with the community. We already had as I mentioned, we already had our Facebook and Instagram accounts, but they were really underutilized as we didn't have nor see a need to invest in this. But when the pandemic hit, social media became our main recruitment strategy in connecting with potential students, current students, and alumni. And we soon found out it was a great way to share resources, connect with partner organizations, and to provide critical information on the pandemic with a few clicks here and there. So it was definitely a great way to establish trust within the community. Folks were able to interact with us through the post comments thread, and also by sending us a private message. Our engagement levels via social media were and continue to be a key indicator that we are readily available to extend our support, whether it's through our programming or through referrals to partner organizations.
Okay, next slide, please. So do you see a social media strategy as a replacement of traditional outreach or as an enhancement?
Definitely an enhancement. Yes, we can reach 100 times more people via a social media post than participating in an event passing out flyers, but nothing truly compares with that in-person interaction, that feeling of trust and warmth you get from having a conversation in the same room. Partnerships and CBOs are also very important, even more so nowadays. Partnerships are mutually beneficial to all community stakeholders. We are able to work together and share resources with the community. And as you can see, referrals continue to be a major player in our recruitment. The CBO direct referrals came in second after social media, and using social media as an enhancement will make sure that we thrive instead of merely surviving.
Great, thanks. Next slide, please. So how has all of this affected enrollment numbers and geographic reach?
That's a great question. So enrollment numbers actually skyrocketed with the fast response we had on social media. The numbers increased 49% from fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 20. And as you can see, we're a little over 3 months away from completing fiscal year 21, and we are already at 92% toward last year's fiscal year's number, really on track of exceeding last year's total recruitment numbers. And if we can move on to the next slide, as I previously mentioned, we can reach 100 times more people via a social media post than participating in an event passing out flyers. An in-person event helps us reach individuals one community at a time. A post via social media helps us reach individuals in various communities at a time. So with the help of Facebook groups and folks sharing on their own pages, we have been able to move from 24 zip codes pre-pandemic to now reaching 84 zip codes. Of course, nothing is easy. We struggled at first. But once we realized the impact social media had in our enrollment, we had to go to the next level, which is investing in ways to make our website more accessible, facilitate enrollment, targeted recruitment via paid ads, and improve our overall processes. We want to make sure that we're still providing the same high level of customer service, if not better, as inquiries continue to grow.
That's great, thank you. And the next slide, please. So one action item that was initiated pre-pandemic was the online registration process via its website. So how can other organizations implement an online registration process to make enrollment easier for their participants?
Great question. So there are several resources with minimal cost available for organizations to take advantage like we did. We received a Force for Good, so this is through JP Morgan Chase, a Force for Good grant to help offset the cost of our online registration project implementation. There are definitely others, like the Taproot Foundation too. It just so happened that we completed our first phase in the early stages of the pandemic, allowing us to facilitate virtual registrations while being fully remote. So basically, our online registration also includes the ability to take the placement exam within a given amount of time and facilitate integration to our main CRM, so through Salesforce, leading to a decrease in time my team needs to take to test and complete data entry for each prospective student.
That's great. Thanks. So what happens is that participants have an entry point at any point on the website. So next slide, please. So how have the changes in staff roles made an impact? Oh no, we're still, yeah.
So let's so on this slide, sorry, before we hit that question,
Right.
on what you see on the screen right now are the different forms of no cost in terms of additional cost than your staff, is the different services that can help you update your online registration. But then at the at cost level is upgrading your website redesign, using a marketing company like Paco Collective to help you with, updating your branding, sponsored Google ads, providing training to help your current staff be able to take on these new roles. So these are just some of the ways that we went about ensuring that our shift, was successful. And if we can move on to the next slide, I can help answer your question in terms of the staff, because that's a key component. The importance of both collaboration within and outside of the organization really triggered Poder's restructuring of staff roles, leading to the creation of my role as a community relations manager. This really allowed me to mobilize a more focused team, which I love to call Las Mosqueteras, and this is Carol and Yvette, right, to devise a more efficient and effective way to complete enrollment and onboarding experience. And so on here, you can see that my Mosqueteras team became the first contact and connection to not just enrollment, but really to wraparound services too. They were the main connection between our potential students, our current students, to our career counselor, right? We also had to focus on increasing our communication methods. Again, I mentioned we utilize the phone, texting, emailing, messenger. I mean, before it was just someone would walk in and talk to them. We would get a phone call. Now they're communicating in 4 other different ways than just an in-person communication, right? And then the biggest piece here with the new strategy shift was that tech support. Now they became our tech gurus, right? They ensure that all of our students are ready before day 1 of class. And of course, we're providing also Tech Tuesdays, for example, where we're able to answer any questions for students who have continued struggles with technology, right? And of course, that one-on-one support, they can just call us and we can help with that. And, as Daniel mentioned, those changes, utilizing your current staff is really a minimal impact in the budget. But again, there are some other changes that you can add that will still impact your budget just minimally, but it will make sure that you are taking your team and helping connect those resources that you already have and then strengthen your current programming as well. And if we can move to the next slide. This is another form that we helped, that we showcase that this is not a job that can be done with 3 people, right? It takes a village. Therefore, it takes the entire Poder staff to come together. We created a YouTube channel and the staff provide content for social media. We actually shifted from having staff meetings to having monthly staff forums to highlight best practices, as well as present a challenge and share new ideas. Our orientations used to have one key person running them, and now new students see and meet key staff before day one.
That's great. Thank you so much, Griselda. And so, as Daniel mentioned before, we recognize that organizations have different challenges, especially with funding. But what are some of the takeaways that organizations can think about and realistically implement in the short term and the long term at no cost and at a cost?
Yeah, so I put together this chart of quadrants that highlights those short and long-term action items that are both at cost and no cost, right? And the quickest items with quick turnaround deliverables are those in the short-term / no cost area. But begin to plan accordingly and strategically with your team the necessary long-term options that will have a permanent positive impact on your organization going forward to ensure that your organization doesn't just survive, but thrive, right? That's the biggest key component here. And of course, one of the short-term no cost that I would like to highlight is our Poder YouTube channel. Our Poder YouTube channel brings in some technical videos that your constituents can utilize to help them have access, right, to that, to any tech issues that they may have. They can find some answers there. So feel free to utilize already content that has been created that you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? It's already there, and we are more than happy to, have you share those resources, as well as, connecting back to us. However we can help you, we would be more than happy to be able to direct you as well.
That's great, Griselda. And yes, to piggyback on the YouTube channel, yes. So part of some of the YouTube short videos involve how can students fill out an intake form online? How can they navigate Google Classroom and Zoom, which are two of the most widely used online learning formats, as well as other navigational tools. And we are, as Griselda said, more than glad to share. So thank you so much.
So with that, I want to first say thank you so much to those individuals from Poder, Griselda and Michael and Daniel and Jose. You guys are doing an outstanding job. And I'm sure all of you out watching this today are like, okay, now I understand why we're showcasing, because what exciting, innovative ideas. Sarah, I'd like to ask you, do we have any questions in the chat before we move on into our next segment? Are there any questions for our cutting edge colleagues that are out here at Poder?
Yes, there are a number of questions, and I do want to mention, first of all, that the recording of this session and the slides will be available, because a couple of people have asked about that. And there are several individuals who are interested in finding out a little bit more about how you used Indeed for marketing. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, that's a really good question. So with Indeed, the way we were looking at it is our job training courses, of course, come with job placement assistance, right? And so that's one of the key things that we highlight on there. We specifically make sure that individuals know that this is a job training right from the beginning, so there is no miscommunication about this being an actual job post, right? It's about getting that potential new career. And so we do use it more as highlighting that job, but again, focusing on the fact that it is a job training opportunity and next steps and how to go about into starting this new career, and just reinforcing that we're here to help. And that's been a good flow of recruitment as well in terms of getting folks to connect with us.
Okay, thank you. And also, there's some interest in learning a little bit more about how you did your pre-testing, exactly how you had that set up, and how you did that remotely.
So for our placement exam?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So There's two ways. So the first one, through our online registration portal, individuals get to create their profile. Then they push a button, and the placement exam appears to them with a specific time limit. So they have, I believe it's 30 minutes to complete the placement exam. At the end, they get a score, but we, as in the Mosqueteras team, gets an email saying that this person has completed the first part of their enrollment, and we get to see their score, and then we communicate back with them and let them know this is the level of integrated English that you would be with us, and that now we're ready to complete the next part, which is making sure that we are completely enrolling them into our classes and providing them with the different content that they need to be ready for day one. We also have, for those that have difficulty in accessing that online registration portal, we did create the same placement exam through Google Forms, and now we have a link that we can text to individuals that find it a lot easier to complete that assessment that way.
And if I may
English.
add, oh, sorry.
No, Mark, I was just going to ask you so we differentiate between the placement exam versus the pretest. And so Mark, maybe you can speak to the pretest and kind of the difference between the two.
Exactly, Daniel. Thank you. So now we've just recently implemented the Best Plus 2.0, all virtual. And this is one example, again, where it takes an entire team, takes an entire village to get this coordinated. So our program support person, who is also a Best Plus certified test proctor, as well as 3 of our other instructors, is in charge of coordinating with Griselda and the Mosqueteras to set up testing appointments. And so to that end, we are now about 75% have 75% of our participants have a test on record now. So we are definitely on track of making sure that everybody has a pre-test. And then we will ensure we have a mechanism that will also inform us as to when the post-test will happen. So yes, so that is also in place. And again, all of this is done virtually, and it can be done.
Okay, thank you. And then there's also some interest in hearing about the texting platform that you use for outreach, and at which point did you reach out to students in the enrollment engagement process?
Yeah, so in the quadrant, so we go one slide previous, there's 2 texting platforms. So we first utilize Easy Texting. They have a nonprofit free component where it gives you a limited amount of text messages. So it's a great way for you to test it out, which is what we did. But we soon found out we had to move to a different platform that would allow us an easier access to not just connecting with our students, but also linking that information over to the student record. So we went with ZipWhip, and that has an integration platform with Salesforce, which is what we use to keep track of all of our students. And the way that we utilize and how do we know when to connect with our students via text messages, we really use it to provide a lot of resources. So any flyers for upcoming events in the community, food pantries, vaccination spots, where to get tested. Those are the different resources and communications we send through our texting platform, as well as any important notes as if classes are canceled, or reminding them of day one, reminders of when they're going to do orientation. And then when someone submits an inquiry or connects with Polaire in any way, that's one way, aside from us giving them a phone call, we send them a text message welcoming them and thanking them for contacting us. So it really has become a vital component to all of our recruitment strategies.
Okay, thank you. And what did you use to create your online registration, and was there a cost for that?
So there's different ways to go about it, but we thankfully had received a grant through JP Morgan Chase. So this is through the Force for Good grant that they offer, and we were able to pose this new project idea, right? Pitch it to the grant, and they have helped us identify the different platforms that work within our current website platform, which is WordPress. So there are different plugins that come into play. So it's a little to no expense, right? It does take an investment because while there's no additional out-of-pocket expense, it does incur staff time, which was my dedicated time, Jose's dedicated time. We had to get feedback from las mosqueteras in terms of what would work and how can we make this user friendly. So there is that piece and that crucial piece, and then getting your IT to help with the process of completing that implementation afterwards. So nothing really is truly free because of that time, that staff investment component. But it is an option, and it is something that will really benefit your organization if you go out and look for these types of opportunities.
So speaking of staff, there's some questions, and I know you presented a revised organizational chart, but there's a question: who within that chart is responsible for DAISY data entry? And then you talked a little bit about your testing, so I think you've sort of answered that, but maybe reiterate who does that. And then also there's a question: is the management of social media a full-time job?
So I can answer the question about the social media. The social media component falls under myself. So that's an added piece to a big component to being the community relations manager. So I oversee all of our social media platforms that include Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, as well as Twitter. And then as far as the DAISY, I know that it's a combined effort with our office manager, Jose, and the Mosqueteras team, where we utilize our reception in the data entry as well. But really, Jose, our office manager, oversees the DAISY component. And I'll let Mark speak to the testing.
Right. So that falls under program, which is my purview. But again, all the processes that have been illustrated up to now, as Griselda said, is a coordinated effort. And so the three of us, Jose, Griselda, and myself, as the management team, are always collectively engaged to ensure that these processes are working and they're coordinated together, because it really is a coordinated effort. And as Daniel mentioned at the beginning, when the org chart comparison was made, the previous org chart from 2019 created silos. But because of the reorganization, and of course, as the cliche says, necessity is the mother of invention, to thrive and not just merely survive in these times, we have to look strategically in how we can coordinate our various roles in a much tighter way. And so this reorganization definitely was instrumental in ensuring this coordination and the effectiveness of the strategy.
All right, thank you. Very interesting to see your system that you have in place. A couple of requests that if some of the members of the Poder could put in the name of the software in the chat, and then also the texting services that you utilize, that might be helpful, especially, with sometimes Wi-Fi can be a little bit glitchy. So if you could do that, and then we are going to ask, I have one more question for you, and I'm sorry we didn't get to everything, and then we're going to go on to another example, but I just want to ask real quickly, could somebody address what they did to reach individuals that may not have tech or Wi-Fi accessibility?
Griselda, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, so for individuals that do not have access to Wi-Fi or texting capabilities, that's where our phone, just the old-fashioned phone calling, right, comes to play. We constantly receive phone calls, and we're returning those phone calls, and we're able to also connect with our partner organizations to utilize their assistance, their support in sharing our information with their constituents as well. Partnerships with the churches still play a huge role with us, as they can print our information on the church bulletins that are sent out to their parishioners. So we utilize still that those are partnerships, right? And they're going to play a key role in ensuring that you are not only working with your current partners, but that you're out there engaging new partnerships too. That's going to be key too, because that's the only other way that you're going to be able to connect with those individuals that would not otherwise have access to you via social media or via text message.
And Griselda,
Exactly.
one thing I would add to that is, you know, we're certainly concerned about the folks that currently can't access our services. But instead of dwelling on that, because we feel like at a certain point we're going to be able to reconnect to that population, the divide is unfortunately continuing to increase. Instead, what we've said is we can actually provide our services to more individuals because we're lowering other barriers. Those barriers can be childcare, allowing somebody to obviously access our programs from home. It can be transportation. I'll understand our students have faced issues accessing our services in the past. Costs at the end of the day because of the time that they need to commit to our program. So while this isn't the answer for everyone, what we wanted to demonstrate with some of the numbers is that at the end of the day, we're serving more people. And we feel like at a certain point, we're going to be able to reconnect with those folks that are unfortunately being left behind.
Thank you very much. And again, let me just emphasize what Amy said. Thank you for joining us. I'm sorry we couldn't have them answer every single question. If you're willing, for our presenters, if you're willing to share your contact information in the chat, then if people want to reach out to you individually, I know that that's a big ask, but if you're willing to do that, we would really appreciate it so that we can move on and talking about, serving different types of individuals. I'm going to turn it over now to Tara Schwab.
And before Tara jumps in, I want to point out in the handouts, there are 2 documents, and they're both going to be the things that Tara's talking about. So if you're asking where those are, check out your handouts. Tara, please take it away.
Thank you. Tara here. So now that we've heard from a CBO and hopefully have some ideas brewing for action plans, we're going to go through an example here that is centered a bit more around a community college program. But again, these are examples, and parts of both of these can hopefully pertain to your program and work to help you get your action plan together. So the one that we're going to look through right now, and we've used the document that, again, you have in your handouts, is centered around addressing student enrollment by working to strengthen relationship with your institution, specifically in marketing and equitable programming to improve recruitment and retention for our students. So I'm going to let you take a look at the introduction here and go ahead and read through this. Okay, so hopefully again you see here that this is really focusing on building that relationship specifically with marketing and equitable programming that may be happening at our institution. And hopefully our community colleges are proud of our adult education programs and like to feature us. But we see that there's a lot happening around marketing Perhaps, for example, the community college has a textedly program that they've already invested in, and perhaps an adult education department could take advantage of that, just to kind of hit some examples before we see the rest of it. And then some of our equitable programming that we have, celebrating people from different cultures, being part memberships in ILEA, the Illinois Equity and Attainment Initiative, has really sparked many and highlighted many equitable programs that are happening at our institutions. And our programs have, you know, key representation of these marginalized groups that could really benefit from access to these equitable programs. So this action plan allows us to kind of use this as an opportunity to hopefully build that partnership with our institutions and take advantage of some of these opportunities. So we can go to the next slide. And again, being mindful of the time, this example is also going to be available. So you should have some time to kind of read through what we've typed here in the specifics of the plan, and hopefully you can use this as an example too as you fill out yours. But I'll let you take a look here. Again, just highlighting that the first goal here, they're both strengthening our relationship with our institution, but goal number 1 is with marketing, and goal number 2 is to increase awareness and access to equitable programming at the institution. At each adult education program and institution, there might be different members of the team. We just put some examples in here that hopefully you can see highlight some different people, both from adult education and within the greater institution. As many institutions are, we see a lot of emails, we see a lot of institutions are adding a chief diversity officer and such, so that might be a good person to ask to be on the team here as part of this effort. Okay, next slide. Okay, on this next slide, we can see some more specifics of questions. What are we using any marketing tools that are available in our institution? Are we creating greater access to the programming for our students? And here's another couple of examples of programs that may be happening at your institution that our students could, you know, be recruited for or take advantage of if they're able to at this point. So Triumph and Trio are 2 organizations that I'm familiar with that are available at many community colleges around here. Triumph, a program for men of color, where they have a lot of cohort type activities and support through the college, and Trio, a program that I'm sure many of you are familiar with for first generation college students. And I thought of an example from my own teaching yesterday. Just within my department, we have a couple of amazing folks in our transitions area that are starting a new job club. And one of our representatives is putting together a presentation this week where she's having someone from a local one-stop come. And they sent some awesome emails, just like we may see about Triumph and Trio at our organization. But I asked her, instead of me sharing with my class, you know, I feel like sometimes I'm like Charlie Brown's mom in my classroom. She came to my classroom and talked about her program, and she had students taking her card to make appointments with her. They're going to be going to her presentation this week. So I think just sometimes hearing that other voice, and, you know, if we could partner a little bit more and ask people to come to recruit our students, and then hopefully we'd start to see a little bit more of that relationship and people reaching out to adult ed for that recruitment as well. So that in itself is a key strategy for recruitment and retention. Some other tools that, might be utilized both on the second page and here. Again, textedly, geofencing, social media that the greater institution might be looking at, unique hits to the website. I saw yesterday in a meeting at Elgin Community College, after a lot of communication and emails sent and knocking on doors, the adult education department at Elgin is on the main the first website, the main website of the institution. And that's part of, you know, knowing our audience. If they don't see it first, are they going to click through and do the search and everything? But now they're there on the first page. If you go to Elgin Community College's website, you know, so that would be a big goal to have there, something like that. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so we've discussed all these, but I'm just going to give you a second to look here to see how we then put these short-term and long-term goals into this ACT portion of your action plan that you'll be filling out. And as we move into the next slide, again, we have some staff responsible for the actions, and then implementation strategies. As we look in the short term and long term, we're able to, again, see the goal 1 and goal 2 as related to both marketing and equitable programming at our institutions. We can see how those would fit into this example as well. Okay, so again, being mindful of the time, this will be available for you. Thank you so much. And please let us know if you have any questions. I can have our next presenter move on in the next slide. Thank you.
And just again, it is available in handouts right now. So if you go to your handouts, you can download the PDF of this document. It's also available on the website that Sarah's going to talk about here in just a second.
All right, so here's the part where I'm going to talk about bring us home. So I want to thank Tara for taking us through an example. I realize that not everything in that slide, we all realize that not everything in the example will work for everyone, and not everything that Bodard shared works for everyone. But what we hope to do was to give you some ideas, some jumping off point. And we want to make sure when you look at your goals that you think about SMART goals. And I'm thinking that most people are familiar with SMART goals. They're specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. We hope that you're able to pull in lots of individuals at your organization to be a part of the goal, because if you've ever set a goal for someone else, you know how that works. There needs to be that buy-in, and I think that brings us full circle, because that was on one of the first slides from Podera, talking about buy-in from everybody. So our SMART goals, and then letting you know what's coming up is we've been together the last 2 weeks together on 11 o'clock on Wednesday, and next Wednesday at 11 o'clock we'll meet again to talk about next steps and about a successful submission. So at that point we will take a look at any other questions that you're bringing up, anything else that we can cover. You have these resources available for you, and that link was put in the chat earlier. So taking you to the website that gives you all of these pieces. So the goal for the last time will be to walk each program to the next steps and provide direction regarding the action plan submission. And then Amy's taking us to what it looks like. Here is the Adult Education Recruitment Action Plan for FY21. You can see that the recording for last week is there at the bottom of your screen. The recording for today will join that one at a fairly quick pace, and the slides will be there for you as well. Okay, hold on, Amy, you're taking me somewhere else now. We're seeing all the slides. There we go, thank you. You're making us.
Apologies, my computer's possessed today. I do apologize.
You know what? I'm sure we've all been on enough of these at this point that we are certainly giving you grace. So thank you for taking us back to this slide, though. And I will, if you'll just take us to the next slide, our timeline is March 31st. Amy mentioned that at the beginning. That's when the action plans are due to your program's regional support. So that's where you will go. And if you need assistance, they are happy to assist you. Anyone in the professional development network, you can reach out to us and we will do our best to answer your question. If we cannot answer your question, we will direct you to where that question can be answered and get that direction for you. And then April and ongoing, this is a continuous improvement plan, so it's not going to end March 31st. It's that, you know, you've asked a lot of great questions, so hopefully those creative juices are flowing and you'll continue to ask questions and help each other, because this has been so helpful today to hear from a program and to think about how we all can move forward. But if you have questions, we are here to support you. And at that, it's 12 o'clock. So I think our time together is up. But we thank all of you for the work that you're doing. We thank you for serving our learners throughout Illinois.
I do want to close with one comment. Last time we were together, there was quite a few questions. This time there's been quite a few questions. We will put together an FAQ. It will be on that website we just showed you, and then we will walk through any additional questions as we move next week together. So just know that we are hearing you, and we will be responding to those. And so be sure to check out that website for additional resources and FAQ documents. And with that, thank you all so very much.